Well, hello, everyone. Ted Schmidt here again with Action Coach Northwest Business Community Podcast here in the greater Spokane area. And today our guest is Chris Hannigan from Mama Torrez Salsa Company. And Chris is the CEO. And I can't wait to hear all about this because I'm very curious. So welcome, Chris, and thank you for being part of our podcast today.
Thanks for having me this afternoon, Ted.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay. Well, let's get right into the questions here and get some words of wisdom from Chris. And I'm excited to hear what he has to say. Okay. So first question, if you had to start from square one in business, what would you do differently?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, and I thought about that many times in my career. And quite frankly, I wouldn't change a thing. The reason being is that my father gave me some really good advice when I was in college. He said, "Go get a liberal arts degree, learn how to communicate, whether it's writing, whether it's journalism, English. Just learn how to communicate, and you can go into whatever field you want." And so
Hmm.
I decided to major in journalism, and it really allowed me to articulate and write about it, whether it's current events or about different stories. And being able to communicate is probably one of the most important things in business, whether it's in meetings, emails, phone calls, what have you. It's really important to be able to express yourself and have a dialogue with individuals. And so, quite frankly, I wouldn't change a thing in terms of getting started and really majoring in a communications degree.
Okay. Great, great. Now you have been involved in a lot of different companies over the years. Is that correct?
Correct.
And kind of been around the block a little bit.
I
Can
have.
you share just a little bit about that?
Sure. After business school, after I got my MBA, I joined what is now called Kraft Heinz. Back then, it was called Kraft General Foods. Um, and I joined them in a marketing capacity as an assistant brand manager. And I really worked my way up through the marketing organization to brand director. And when I left Kraft Foods, I was running Capri Sun, which was basically one of the largest brands and one of the flagship brands at Kraft at the time. And Capri Sun was growing about 30% year over year. It was a lot of fun. We were spending a lot of money on capital and making sure we can keep up with the growth. But I really, spent I would guess my formative years of understanding marketing and sales at Kraft. I also spent some time at Del Monte Foods, having relocated to the West Coast, worked in San Francisco for Del Monte, and then made my rounds at three or four other packaged goods companies, mostly in the marketing and sales capacity, and then eventually in the executive capacity.
Excellent. Excellent. Okay. Pay attention, people. You got some knowledge here. All right. Okay. What have been your biggest learnings, or excuse me, what have been your biggest learnings? What have your biggest learnings been as an employer since you began in business? Sorry about that.
I'd say my biggest learnings is to really value your team. Everyone's very different. You may not have a team made up of the exact same people that share the exact same philosophy. They don't look the same. They may beat to a different drum, but that's the best part of managing a team that has different philosophies, different views,
Hmm.
different approaches, versus having a team of 10 that may have the exact same approach, exact same view. So I'd like that myriad of philosophies and different perspectives on a team.
Excellent. Excellent. So what would you say is a challenge for you with regard to team? What has been a challenge over the years that you've kind of had to deal with? Has there been something that's kind of reoccurring, or is it different every time, or is it?
Yeah, it's different every time, but at the end of the day, it comes down to personalities, managing
Yeah.
personalities.
Okay.
Some folks may have a very strong personality where they're constantly sucking all the air out of the room. Um, and then you might have someone that's very quiet, very meek, doesn't want to speak up, but has some really great thoughts. And you would have wished they would speak up earlier because they're very
Mm.
articulate, they're very cerebral, but they've got a lot of great things to say when they do share them.
Yeah. Okay. Excellent. Okay. What are some common misconceptions about running a business, and how do you address them?
I think the biggest misconception is that, all businesses make money. That's not the case. People talk about the word big business. I mean, big business doesn't necessarily mean that, everyone's profitable and things are rosy. It takes a lot of hard work to grow profitably. Um, so when I tell people I'm in business, they automatically think of success and wealth and all, and that's really not the case. Business is really about being given a challenge, uh, understanding what the root causes of those challenges are, and then determining how you can fix those root causes so that you can win at the end of the day. And the different challenges could be anywhere from having some financial challenges on the profit and loss statement. It could be to our earlier discussion about employees and managing employees. It could be environmental or government factors and challenges that we face with regulations and all. So there's always an interesting day, and it's never the same. But I'd say that's probably the biggest misconception, is just because you're in business is that you're successful.
Mm, interesting. Good answer. That's an interesting answer. Okay, what do you attribute your growth to?
Um, in my personal growth, Ted, or business growth?
Uh, Up to you.
Okay. Well, I'd say my personal growth probably has been being exposed to really, really great leaders. Uh, in the consumer packaged goods business I'm in, food and beverage, I've had the opportunity to be mentored by captains of industry, and I could rattle off 4 or 5 CEOs of some very large organizations that I had the privilege of working under. And I really learned from these individuals. And I listened to them. I didn't hear them, I listened to them. And they've gone off and done amazing things. They're still doing amazing things. But I would say being mentored by great leaders uh, has been very, very eye opening. And in turn, that's what I try to do now as a leader within my organization and within the community. I try to mentor those that are learning, are coming up through the organization, or are interested in business. And I try to, mentor these individuals that look to me as proteges, uh, and uh, hope that one day that they'll be the captains of industry as a new generation comes in.
Mm, and that doesn't hurt your growth either, I expect, right? So,
Absolutely.
yeah. Okay. How do you balance your personal life with the demands of running a business?
Ooh, that's a good one. Like everyone, work-life balance is very important. My wife and I have an understanding that both of our lives and work-life balance, uh, um, the work-life balance is very important to both of us. So, she gives quite a bit for being very flexible with my schedule. I give quite a bit whenever she's got the demands on her schedule, and it's really give and take. And I hate to use it as it's almost like a contract, but it's not.
Okay.
It's really kind of a given and an understanding within my household. But at the very end of the day, family comes first in my book. Um, I can always come back to work and pick up some of the pieces, but I can never pick up the pieces if I miss my son's first day of school, or if I forget an anniversary or a birthday. That I can't fix. But business wise, I can always come in and pick up some pieces, and then thankfully I've got a very strong team behind me that if I weren't there, they could manage through the challenges.
Excellent. Excellent. Wow, we're whipping through this. Okay.
I can
What,
make my
what, qual
answers a little longer if you like.
Yeah, you're very concise. It's good. Stories are great. If you get any good stories, what qualities do you look for in employees, and how do you foster a positive and productive work environment?
That's a great question, and that's when I think about it, I think about some of my um, core values as an individual, and I'd say the first one really is integrity. Um, I try to surround my folks or myself with folks that have tremendous amount of integrity. They say what they're going to do, um, and they do it, and they do it quickly, and they're very decisive, um, and they always do it the right way. And that's again, I'm a product of a retired CEO. My father retired from business after 35 years of international business, and he said, always do the right thing. And it really comes down to integrity for me. I'd say the second one is someone that's not interested in politics, politicizing, posturing, or positioning at work. There's no room for that in the office place in my mind. Everyone should come to work with the interest of doing what's best for the business and what's best for the team. So politics, posturing, and positioning is definitely something I don't admire, and I don't value if people are valuing that as something very important to them. I value diversity, not necessarily diversity in culture or race, but diversity in thought. Um, some people could approach a problem with a certain different approach than many others. There's no
Mhm.
or black and white answer, but I like people that have diversity in thought and coming to the table with with those types of skills. Uh, and then, lastly, I would say one of the key things is you spend 8 to 12 hours a day with people at work, more so than you do in most cases with your family. And you really got to have fun. You really have to enjoy what you're doing and enjoy the people around you. Because if you're going to be spending that much time with these individuals, you've got to be satisfied, you've got to be happy, you've got to be having fun, and you've got to be learning. And that's probably what I'd say those four core values are very important to me.
Excellent, excellent. Do you like to be challenged by your team?
It depends.
Okay.
But of course I do. Of course, any good leader will say yes, I do.
Yeah.
It depends what that challenge is. If you're going to challenge me to an arm wrestling match, I'll give up right now.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I
Um,
get it. Yeah.
but if we're going to talk about a case study of where something went wrong or went sideways, then yeah, I'd love to hear people's thoughts and how they would approach a challenge a different way. I mean, I've been through hundreds and hundreds of challenges in my career, and they could have gone different ways if I took a different approach to them. And sometimes I'll tell the story, and someone will tell me, "Well, did you think about doing this?" And I say, "No. Where were you? Where were you in my life at that time?"
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I get challenged quite a bit, and that's part of being, I think, a good leader is being able to hear what your team has to say, uh, acknowledge what they're saying, distill it, and then provide feedback on what your thoughts are.
Yeah. Excellent. Well said. Okay. Wow. We have only two questions left. So
Huh. Well, Nick, I can get into more stories if you like.
yeah, you're doing you're sailing along. I'm telling you, this is really you have very concise answers. So that's very good. Okay. What question should I be asking you that I haven't?
Um, I would say, what would you have done if you didn't get into business?
Hmm.
Um, and I've got a couple of stories for that, so this might take up some time. But when I was in college, I thought I wanted to be a rock hunter, specifically a geologist.
Okay.
Um, I just thought that learning about igneous, metamorphic, and sedimentary rocks were just the coolest thing in the world. To the point where, as a kid, I'd go out and look for those different kinds of rocks, and I had a rock collection. And by my freshman year of college, I really thought I wanted to major in geology. And then I met with an advisor, and we went through what the annual salaries of geologists were, and it really changed my mind. I was like, okay, I don't want to do that. Maybe I'll get into something else that might be a little bit more fruitful for me. But another noble um, uh, career that I also thought about going into was law.
Hmm.
I applied to law school and business school, got into a what they call a JD MBA program, and thought I wanted to go into corporate law. Uh, and I decided against that for a couple of reasons. One is I felt as though if I wanted to do something really, really well, I should focus on it versus focusing on maybe two big deals, getting a JD or being an attorney or getting an MBA and being a business person. So I basically decided to concentrate on business, and I went full-fledged forward concentrating on business and really enjoyed it. And what's interesting, Ted, is that, as I mentioned, I did go to business school, and I wasn't that great of a student in undergrad. And I worked my way through college. I had a side job that helped me pay for my bills. My father luckily paid for my tuition at a public university, but I had to pay all my living expenses, all my fun money, I guess. But it's interesting when you put yourself through graduate school, that's when you find yourself sitting in the front row, paying attention,
Mhm.
waking up at the crack of dawn with study groups, and you really value that time um, learning about business and really applying yourself, because you realize that you're paying for it this time around, and you're surrounded by these really really smart individuals that got into these great schools. And it's really kind of a mind-blowing experience how undergrad was a very different experience for me than graduate school was. And I'm very very glad I went to graduate school, and I came out of it with a different perspective on education for that reason.
Yeah. Yeah. I think a lot of undergraduates, a lot of partying going on.
Yeah, that's probably true.
Yeah. It's like, great. Okay. Well, last question. Where do you see yourself in 5 years, and any words of advice for other business owners who are looking to grow their business?
Sure. So I guess in the next 5 years, what I'd like to do is continue what I'm doing right now, is lead a growth-minded organization uh, through scaling up. And when I say scaling up, is basically take a small organization to a medium-sized to larger organization. I want to continue doing that. One of the things I have gotten involved in most recently are being part of boards or advisory committees. Um, about 4 years ago, I joined the board of directors for the United Way of Central Washington. I was a board member among five other board members, and it was really a challenging but very rewarding experience. We were going through a a campaign program in the middle of COVID, and it was very
Right.
very challenging to get the community to support the United Way when there were COVID restrictions. People were worried about their finances and worried about the economy. It was very difficult to manage a capital campaign during those struggling times. But I just found it very rewarding being able to help lead the United Way of Central Washington through that uh, very difficult time. I did serve as the vice chairman of the board up until I decided to resign my post when I moved from Central Washington to Eastern Washington. But that's also led me uh, to express a lot of interest in helping be on boards of other smaller organizations that are looking for expertise in business. Are there smaller founder-owned food companies out there that are looking for mentors or advisors who can help them scale up? I'd love to be part of their journey to get them from just being a small company to a growth minded company that could be a medium sized or larger sized organization. And I also want to continue to give back to the community. I don't think there's anything more rewarding than being able to give back to the community in which you live in, or a community that you share like minded principles with. I have not joined anything here, particularly in Spokane. I am part of some organizations across the United States, particularly in Texas, where my family's from. But I would like to get involved, whether it's with organizations here in Spokane or Washington, or even more organizations across the U.S. And they don't have to be business organizations. I mean, I find it interesting to you know coaching soccer, or providing some managerial expertise for a Boy Scout group or something,
Mhm.
whether they're on
Yeah.
a charity drive, what have you. But I'd say giving back is probably something I want to do in the next 5 to 7 years and do a lot more of it.
Okay. And any tips on growing your business for other business owners?
Absolutely. I'd say be patient. Um, you
Hmm.
know, success doesn't come overnight. Um, and it's not going to come in the next 30 days and it's not going to come in the next 60 days. It really requires uh, patience by you, patience by all around you, your employees, your leaders, and then whoever your constituents are, whether they're customers, consumers, what have you. But articulating why people need to be patient is important because success is a marathon. It's the long game. It's not the short game. Yeah, there's some short-term successes that will eventually get you to the long game that you can celebrate, but don't be in a hurry because along the way you're going to fail, and when you fail, you learn, and you learn, and you will never make that mistake again. So be very patient with yourself in business. Uh, Learn to fail, but fail quickly, and then you'll take those experiences into your next um, either role or next job.
Excellent. So you've done a lot of marketing over the years, correct?
I have.
What's Here's a little supplement question. I didn't give you this one.
That's all right.
What's the best piece of marketing advice you would give somebody?
Hmm. I would probably help them describe the definition of a brand. Um, and I often ask people because I've learned this over my career. I ask them, "What is a brand?" And they'll say something like, "Well, it's the name of a product that is in a category that you sell to consumers." Um, and I have my own definition of what a brand is, and what I my definition of a brand is a promise. That's what a brand is. It's a promise to consumers. And you've got to deliver on that promise by delivering what could be an unmet need, what could be a competitive or compelling difference, what could be a quality difference. But it's a promise that you give a consumer that you're going to deliver on all these great expectations that's going to allow that consumer to come back and be loyal to you again and again. So it's really delivering on that promise. So I speak to a lot of marketing students every year, and I always ask them that question: Give me the definition of a brand. And again, they start to articulate the name of a product in a category that's
Mm,
marketed to consumers, and I sum it up in 2 words: it's a promise.
wow. Awesome. Well said. Well, thank you, Chris. Great job. Very insightful, very informative. And thank you for taking on my extra questions. I know I didn't really plan on those, but I appreciate that very much. And now, yeah, I think that last one really was awesome. That is very awesome to hear that. So thanks again to Chris Hannigan, the CEO of Mama Torrez Salsa Company here in Spokane. And we're going to get this out to the business community and everybody learn and enjoy. So thank you again, Chris.
Thank you, Ted. I appreciate it.
All right. Take care.
Bye bye.